Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Comment periods are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the total amount of time for public comment is 15 minutes. Persons participating by way of a video conference or teleconference shall ensure their audio is muted at all times, except when the board chair announces public comment periods. At those designated times, members of the public wishing to speak shall enable their audio and state their name for the record. When multiple members of the public wish to speak, the clerk will determine the order of speakers and announce their names accordingly. To ensure proper conduct, the board reserves the right to mute the audio and video of any member of the public violating generally accepted principles and decorum of official public meetings. And I know we have one for the room, sir, when you're ready.
We do. Mr. Tom McWhorter.
You want to use this one, Tom, for me? I want to use that one. Just because the mics are on. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, board. Tom McWhorter. I live in Olivehurst, and hope everybody's feeling well. My comments today are going to be a little bit off cuff because if I remember correctly, the second outlet project for Bulledge Bar, the last time I remember, it's been a while, but I think we've already sunk $10 million into the engineering and feasibility studies and all of that. And I'd like to just suggest that we cease and desist all expenditures in this direction, because although it has been mentioned to me that, wow, somebody actually reduced a person's worth to dollar amount, it always has been done. Insurance does this. Somebody passes away and you can prove that negligence or culpability on somebody's part, somebody has to determine a dollar figure. And from what I understand, it's like $250 million that we're looking at. And of course, that's today's dollars. And by the time, the time frame you guys are looking at to get this done, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, probably be 20 years. And, so much more money will be expended for something that, once in 100 years, 200 years. I think we have a lot more projects that have a lot longer seniority. Sidewalks, curbs, and gutters in many unimproved portions of the county. And I know that it's been told to me that, we can't pay for sidewalks. Where does the curbs and gutters get their water from? From the sidewalks. Yes, I haven't seen anywhere where they're married together, but everybody seems to be mentally in tune with that idea that they're married together. I know that last year, one of our supervisors threw out the number 75 million would get curbs and gutters and sidewalks in all of Olivehurst. I know that there's a 50-year-old study out there that hasn't gotten any motion or traction moved forward, mostly because of financial reasons. I know that 5 out of 7 of the members on this nice board here today are on the board of supervisors. So I'd like you to encourage that work together and say, hey, look, we're tired of our citizens having to walk their dogs in the middle of the street, having to park their car so that instead of being a 2-lane road, which mine hasn't been paved in the entire time I've lived there, almost 32 years. That's Ball Street in Olivehurst. And, because of financial matters. And now you've got all this money and you want to blow $250 million on a second outlet that since that dam has been built, we've not had a need for. This is just somebody's computer model, I'm guessing. But I think we have a lot higher priorities, a lot higher, more long-standing issues in this county that could be better served with the finances you could provide. And so I'd like to encourage that the money be used for curbs, gutters, and sidewalks in the county, in places that don't have it. I've got a ditch in front of my house. What have you got in front of your place? Curb, gutter, and sidewalk?
Point of order.
Yes.
Thanks. We're running a little short on time, Yuba.
Okay, well, I thought the public had 15 minutes. I didn't see anybody else.
It's 3.
I know. But in total, so anyway, Thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Do
Not
we have
seeing-
anybody else?
Not seeing anybody in the room or online, sir.
Okay, we're going to move to consent.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? I see none. Any board comment? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, we're going to move on to discussion items. We have one informational and two that are action items. Item number 3 is going to be presented by Willie. We're going to receive an update regarding the planned maintenance and rehabilitation project to be performed during the Colgate Tunnel outage.
Yeah, this is really simple. As you're aware, through past presentations, the Colgate Tunnel outage we've been planning for several years is a major undertaking where we drain the tunnel and shut the units down for basically 3 to 4 months to do tunnel maintenance and primarily to upgrade the penstock shutoff valve, which is at the downstream end of the tunnel, which was installed in 2008, but had some problems with leakage and is unable to be used in real-time situation. It can be used today as a guard valve for maintenance on the penstock, but it can't be used for a real-time issue related to the penstock, meaning it's not actively set up to trip if there's a problem or close if there's a problem with the penstock. And the goal is to make it an active real-time valve. To do that, we need to upgrade primarily the penstock leading to the valve and the flange. Last week, we made the decision to delay that outage it was originally planned for fall of next year, and now we plan to conduct that outage in the fall of 25. The primary driver for the delay is the manufacturing of the flange itself. This is a 14-foot diameter, basically ring that gets welded onto the penstock. It's something like 12 inches thick, and we had 6 attempts. The manufacturer made 6 attempts at forging the flange, but during the cooling process, parts of the flange have cracked. And so we realized that there's varying thicknesses in the flange, and we need to redesign the flange itself. And the bottom line is without having the actual flange constructed and on site, we don't want to commit to taking a 4-month outage if we don't have the materials and all that. The one other driver is coordination to the tunnel outage itself, is coordination with PG&E. We've been coordinating for several years with PG&E on work that they could take advantage of the outage to complete simultaneously with our tunnel outage. One of our concerns was, look, we've been asking PG&E to do their major work during our outage. Let's make sure they're able to delay their work as well. We talked to PG&E 2 Fridays ago. They were happy to delay it. It was not going to cause any problems with their transmission or substation systems. So they've agreed to delay their work to fall of 25 as well. So that's the primary update. There's many other advantages to delaying it 1 year. The other one, it wasn't the driver, but is going to be a benefit for us, is next year our FERC Part 12 inspection is due. Every 5 years we have to do a Part 12 inspection on our dams with FERC. Since the 2017 Oroville incident and other related dam safety issues throughout the country, FERC has greatly increased the process and the information you have to gather in your Part 12 inspections and summary reports, causing a significant workload. By delaying the tunnel outage, we'll be able to have our staff participate in the Part 12 inspections next year and not be distracted by the tunnel outage itself. So it kind of puts one, let's say, engineering project in the forefront, 2024. We'll get that complete by early 25 and then have staff freed up to work on the tunnel outage in 25 as well. That's one of the collateral benefits of delaying it 1 year. So that's the update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Could you tell us the flange? Did they replace it at the last with the one that leaked? And was the flange differently designed?
Yeah, the existing flange has been the primary source of problems with the leakage since 2008. And once the flange was installed and we tested it and it leaked, various non-outage related upgrades have been made to the flange, and I'll make it really simple. We changed the actual bolts that hold the flange together, and we made these really funky looking washers to get compression on the flange itself to try to stop the leakage. All of these efforts, what I would consider are not optimal repairs. The optimal repair is to drain the tunnel and actually remove the flange and replace the flange. We have made attempts, 2008 and a couple years later to fix the flange externally, and none of those have worked.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Willie, thank you very much. So, discussion item 4 is an action item. Okay, do we have any public comment on Willie's presentation? Okay, no public, no more board comment. We're going to go to item number 4, which is an action, excuse me, action item. Consider approval of a request to amend the grant agreement with Reclamation District 10 for additional grant funding in the amount of $1 million for continuing work on the tow access corridor along the Feather River. This will be Sammy Knoll, is that correct?
Correct. Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for having me. My name is, once again, Sammy Knoll. I am Yuba-Water Agency's Flood Risk Reduction Manager. As you mentioned, I am here on a request from RD10 to amend an existing grant from the Community Grant or Impact Grant program for an additional $1 million. As a quick background, February 2019, the board approved a grant for $1.3 million for this project. In 2021, it was amended for just north of $1 million. And we're back here for another amendment. This amendment specifically is in response to the RD10 went to bid in September, and the bid they got us several bids, and all the bids exceeded the remaining funding in the grant, and so they are requesting $1 million to complete construction. Anybody have
So this is up to this point, we haven't really done any construction, correct?
Correct.
And this will get us started?
Yes, and completed.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Yes, could you explain to get the upgraded levee, we need to have a lower access road? And I understand there was trouble in getting the dirt and compaction on the lower access road.
I think Tony from
okay, maybe you can explain that to the board.
Thank you very much, members of the board. Mr. Chairman, my name is Tony Diaz. I represent Reclamation District 10. MBK is the district engineer for the Reclamation District. I wanted to clarify and add to Sammy's comments earlier. So with the existing funding prior to the requested amendment, there has been partial award for construction to a contractor out of Yuba County to begin construction. We're approximately halfway completed with the project as of today. To Director Matthews' question regarding the purpose of the project, this is actually construction of a access road along the landside toe of the levee. So it allow for operations and maintenance and movement of equipment during flood fight, and also allow for inspection during high water. So the compaction that you mentioned is being achieved during construction currently.
So that's a requirement to get the higher upgrade?
It's
dual access road?
It's a requirement to support operations and maintenance of the levee itself. So eventually down the road, there would be support of potential remapping of the floodplain within the county. That's a longer term goal of this project. It's a very much longer term goal, that is.
Because I've understood you had trouble with the qualities of the dirt and attaining compaction.
Initially, there was some concern, but that has been taken care of.
Thank you.
I have a question about squirrel control. Is there a program on those stretches of living?
Yeah, so the district does employ an abatement program and abating program as well. The composition of the levees is predominantly sand, and there's a good amount of rodent activity. So actually with this contractor on site, the Reclamation District and MBK has been working with the contractor to develop a plan to track walk the levees and evaluate potential fumigation of locations where there's a large amount of rodent activity. So we're evaluating that currently as well.
I know 784 has some complicated system of, I don't know if it works on your type of levee or not.
I'm not aware of the particulars of their system, but what they've looked at is there's a number of different items that Reclamation District 10's put together. There's fumigation been concerned, there's baiting, there's broadcast baiting, there's trapping through the county trapper. But at this point, I'm not aware of the specifics of their program.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found it interesting. When you get a chance, you might talk to Patrick down there and see what they got going on.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question also. I was actually just up there and when they were doing some of the work. Are they also going to be barricading the levee off to keep people off the levee?
So that is a feature of the design of the project. There is a portion that is going to be, they're considering placing concrete bin blocks because at the southern limit of the project, that's where where the predominance of, I guess, access to the levee and access to the water side of the floodway is occurring. In other areas, like adjacent to the pumping plant, adjacent to 70, they place bin blocks as well. That's a similar element of the project, so that is going to be part of this as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Tom Engler, who's also with MBK, is online and he has his hand raised. He may want to contribute or clarify some information.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom. Thanks for putting your hand up, sir.
Thank you, members of the board. Tom Engler, MBK Engineers. I just wanted to answer the question regarding RD 784 system of rodent control. They do what's called grouting of the rodent holes, which is fairly expensive. You need the equipment to do that. You have to build it yourself, and it takes a pretty extensive crew. So that's typically limited to areas with a lot of staff and a lot of available people to do that. I also prefer backfilling of rodent holes because I don't know if we have to do future projects, how that grout's going to interact with our project in the future. So I try to avoid grouting in most cases unless the rodents get real bad. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks for that clarification. Do we have any other comments? Okay, this is an action item, so we'll need a motion and a second.
So moved. I move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Now we will see if we have any public comment. Seeing none, do we have any board comment? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. We're going to move ahead. Okay. Item number 5 is also an action item. Consider approving a $1,785,919 no interest loan to the South member units affected by the 2023 Ostrom Road crossing failure, including reimbursement for groundwater pumping. And I believe Ryan McNally is going to do this presentation.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. Ryan McNally, your Director of Water Resources and Flood Risk Reduction. And again, I'm here to talk about the repair at Ostrom Road that we saw earlier this year, as well as some of the things we're proposing to help our partnering irrigation districts who were affected by it. So as you might know, when it comes to the South Canal infrastructure, despite the agency owning and operating it, the South member units reimburse the agency for all associated operations, maintenance, and capital expenses on a pro rata share. And that's based on their annual water deliveries. Just for context, our South member units are represented by the South Yuba Water District, the Brophy Water District, Dry Creek Mutual Water Company, and the Wheatland Water District. So generally speaking, all of the O&M and capital expenses are reimbursable costs. In 2021, we experienced a minor failure on I guess it'd be the north shoulder on Ostrom Road, where there was a small sinkhole. We went in and repaired that. That cost was entirely incurred by the member units. It was several $100,000. But through that repair, we identified that we were going to have to come back and do some significant rehabilitation to the crossing at Ostrom Road. And so we fast forward a little bit into 2022 when we decided to do centrifugally cast concrete. It was the cheapest way forward, and a contractor was to go in and actually spray the interior lining of the pipe with concrete. That would have been a permanent fix. The engineer's estimate on that job was $700,000. So, following the procurement process, we went out to bid. The bid came back at $1.7 million. Again, as we represent the member units, I didn't feel it was reasonable or prudent to take that cost back to the member units and say, hey, by the way, here's another $1 million on top of what we were expecting. So the plan was to punt a year. We figured we had a year. Let's come back in a year with a more reasonable cost or a reasonable project, reasonable expense, or more reasonable way forward. Well, as my luck would have it, I rolled the dice and lost. And on Cinco de Mayo, which somebody in our team cleverly named it Sinkhole de Mayo, at the intersection of Bradshaw and Ostrom Roads, there was a large sinkhole. It was that Friday afternoon. So over the weekend, we met out there and our team and a couple of the member unit representatives, and we decided let's excavate the hole. Let's replace it with smooth bore 84-inch pipe. The repair, all told, came back that the estimate was $3.2 million, which obviously far in excess of the $1.7 million. Work began. One of the other things that we were mindful of was we were heading right into rice season, irrigation season, flood up. So we had to rent pumps to pump water from the upstream side up over Ostrom Road to the downstream side to keep surface water deliveries flowing, which added to the cost. That was baked into the $3.2 million estimate. As work prevailed, we ran into another issue, and that was the discovery of fiber optic lines that were buried under the pipe. These fiber optic lines were also property of the United States Air Force, which is national security. So we were very mindful of not disturbing those. Being that they were artifacts of national security, they also were not forthcoming as to where exactly those were. So it took us 5 weeks to find those lines. We did receive a verbal confirmation that, we had done our due diligence, so go ahead and start digging. We weren't comfortable with that assertion. So we went ahead and dug down to the top invert of the pipe and then potholed parallel to that pipe again. And thankfully we did, because we found that second fiber optic line touching the bottom of the pipe. Had we gone in and excavated, I've heard rumors of what the cost of exposing one of those lines is, and it's not a place we wanted to go for two reasons. Obviously, cost to us and the member units, but also, again, national security. So, all told, had we not had the issue with the fiber optic line, this was a 26-day project. We installed over 300 feet of 84-inch pipe, 2,000 yards of concrete in what would have been 26 days absent the fiber optic issue. Another thing we did to reduce cost to the member units, instead of pumping water up over Ostrom Road that whole time, we just allowed it to flow through the repair area. So water just free flowed through, maintaining those deliveries to the South member units. And a big thanks goes out to the public works crew at Yuba County, because they didn't make too much of a big deal about it. So, but we were mindful of that, of restoring water and restoring vehicle traffic. So on July 7th, 2023 is when water was restored. The repair was functional. So we restored surface water deliveries to the South member units. And on July 15th, 2023 is when we restored traffic. We did purposefully delay the striping of the road till late September. September 26th is when that was restriped. And again, that was purposeful just because there were striping crews elsewhere in the county, and we could have leveraged their being mobilized to Yuba County for cost savings. So we did that. All told, the cost of the project was, Kyle, help me out. It was 2.9 million, right? Yeah, $2.9 million. Had we, going back a year, had we initiated that $1.7 million repair, we would have avoided this situation. So the proposal is the member units pay the $1.7 million repair, because had they paid that, we would have avoided this. And the water agency help with the additional $1.2 million. You would offset those costs. $100,000 of that $1.2 million is also groundwater pumping reimbursement, because South Yuba and Dry Creek were forced or they needed to pump groundwater to offset shortages that we still saw in surface water deliveries. We were not able to pump all the water up over. So there's about 1,800 acre feet or so of groundwater pumping that was required. The basis for reimbursement on that groundwater pumping comes from the 2021 deficiency program, where their actual PG&E expenses were used to develop those numbers. We just used the same numbers to the agreement of the South member units. And finally, with that $1.7 million, as you can imagine, the irrigation districts try to keep their rates as low as possible. A $1.7 million hit to the irrigation districts is substantial. And to help them offset those costs and avoid going out to their ratepayers for a Prop 218 study, the agency is also proposing that we provide a no interest loan over 3 years to pay their share back. Moving forward, we're working with our trusted consultant, Woodard and Curran. They're developing a comprehensive capital improvement plan for all of the facilities in the South Canal infrastructure, because we know this was all constructed at the same time in the early 1980s. So we have reason to believe that a lot of it's at end of life. So we're taking a really hard look at this. And as we go through that process, we're going to sit down with our South member units and discuss the path forward. How do we pay for it? And what is the reasonable level of repair that we do? Is there ways that we can save costs on their behalf? And so that's really all I have this morning. And just that this proposal is in support of our partnering irrigation districts, which I think, as you know, as part of the strategic plan, is one of our top priorities. And finding ways to help repair and improve the delivery infrastructure to our farmers is one of our critical mission areas. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if there's any technical concerns or questions, I know Kyle Morgado, who's the project manager on this, is in the audience today.
No question. That was a pretty complicated project.
Yes.
I'm glad you didn't interfere with national security.
And it grew in complexity as we went on. It was Murphy's Law personified.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any questions on this? Director Bishop?
I do. Is there, I think I know the reason, but maybe this might be a Willie question too, but would we consider this just granting these funds instead of loaning the funds?
I mean, honestly, that's semantics. It's, agency funds that have been expended. And basically what we're structuring is, instead of them paying it back in the next month or two after we send them an invoice, it's delaying the requirement for payment over 3 years. So, I mean, we could say, hey, come back to us in March with a grant request. It's really 6 of one, half of the other.
The original purpose was flood development or flood control and water development. And this would be considered water development in the respect that you're upgrading an existing facility. Does that fall within the interpretation of our Agency Act?
Yeah, I see this squarely in the center of the Agency Act, in that the overall design of the project, our New Bullards Bar and Colgate and, the whole project, dams and all, originally included conveyance to all the South member units. But as we all know, in the 1960s, when that cost too much, we struck much of the conveyance facilities from the original project, and we slowly, incrementally helped the South member units construct the South conveyance from, let's say, 1970 to the early 1980s. Now that those facilities are 40 years old, so now this is capital replacement of the original project development. That's the way I see it, Charlie, and it's pretty squarely in the Agency Act.
And I guess the other thing is, in the 70s and early 80s, they funded 100% of it, I believe. The agency had no funding till we started getting water sales, and then obviously in 16, power sales. And I think there's also something in the act that says power sales can help offset water costs. The phrase is in there somewhere. So I don't think we need to settle it today, but I think it's something that the board needs to consider, that if this is a water development issue, that we are empowered to do more than just loan them the money.
Is that a motion, Charlie?
Charlie, real quick, I don't know if
before we did our motion, I think I ought to come through the pod committee. I don't think it's something we need to, it's a substantial sum of money. We ought to do it in an orderly process rather than just make a motion right now. That's my feeling on it.
So we are at a clarification stage right now. Is everybody clear on what we're doing here?
Well, before
Maybe
there's
you can clear that up.
Before there's a discussion about a motion, I believe Director Matthews asked a question about the original project development and the overall cost, and he made a statement that the member units paid for the development of the South conveyance, and that is true. And in our current water supply contract with the South member units, they're responsible, as Ryan stated, for operations, maintenance, and capital upgrades. They're responsible to reimburse us for that. What we're bringing you today is a portion of the cost of repair of Ostrom Road. We're saying we will bear that cost because we were the ones that said, look, this $1.7 million bid looks to be too expensive. Let's look for other methods to construct that crossing cheaper. So we delayed it, taking on the risk of the known weaknesses with that crossing. Those weaknesses came to fruition on Cinco de Mayo, and we're saying, look, we will take the extra cost above the 1.7 million. We will pay for that as the agency, and you member units per the contract will pay the 1.7 million portion, the original bid of the centrifugally cast concrete, and we will allow you to pay that back over 3 years. So that's what's on the table today, and that's the action item is that financial scenario, us taking a portion of the cost of the 1.2 and paying that as the agency, and the member units paying the 1.7 portion over 3 years.
Okay. I guess I'm suggesting, Mr. Chairman, that we delay the commitment of sending them a bill for the 1.7 and see if it fits into the agency act under water development, that we would consider this is water development, and we wouldn't send them a bill. But since it's a major amount, I'm not suggesting we make that motion today. I'm suggesting
we already had an agreement on the 1.7
and look at it.
Through the chair. I'll make that
Director
motion.
Vasquez.
I'll make that motion based upon what Willie's explanation for that was for the reason for doing it.
Well, I have a question to the chair. If we approve this as it's written today and presented, could they then come back to pod committee and request to offset a portion of that 1.7 or almost 1.8 million at a future date?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess the justification I'm using is that in the original agency act, they were building a south canal and a north canal. And when the bids came in to build the dam and the revenue from the bonds, there wasn't enough money to build either the south conveyance or the north conveyance. And that was the original intent of the act in 1959. Now we're at a point where they built the south canal. We have now a major cost to upgrade it. Since they built it and the agency didn't, even though it was in the original plan of the agency act, that we looked to see if this would fall in. We would want it, if the seven of us wanted it to fall into the area that it was originally planned, and now it was built with their money. Now there's a major upgrade in it, and that we consider doing the major upgrade ourselves as part of the commitment for building it originally.
All right.
Explain again the 1.7.
I really want to explain the agency act versus the proposed development in the 1960s. In 1959, the Agency Act was created, and it's a general document that authorizes the agency to solve water problems in Yuba County, and it includes water supply development. The subsequent attempts at developing the project, including the original bid that included the South Conveyance, is authorized by the Agency Act, but the Agency Act doesn't speak to the specifics of the project. For example, it doesn't speak to a 645-foot tall dam at New Bullard's Bar. It doesn't speak to a 340 megawatt generator. It authorizes those purposes. So I think Director Matthews we need to disconnect the act from the attempts at developing the project. And I will just reiterate what I said earlier. The Agency Act authorizes the agency to do these works, to develop these, and to contract with any entity in the county for both construction and long-term operations and maintenance long-term. I think what the policy decision I think that's potentially being contemplated here is whether the agency pays from today on, pays for the entire operations, maintenance, and capital upgrades, or some portion thereof going forward. And that's not an Agency Act related decision. That's a policy decision for this board to make.
Correct. I'd like to second Andy's motion, see if I can clarify it. And I think that is that we approve the $1.7 million loan today, and then bring to the proper committees a discussion based on what Willie just said.
Right.
Is that right, Andy?
Call the question, yes. Call the
I
question.
second the motion.
I believe we have a motion and a second.
All right, very good.
And Willie will clarify that.
I don't know that I'm going to clarify. I want to ask Josh, who is our general counsel, who is online, to make sure that the motion and second that was just made is consistent with the action that's proposed in the agenda. That's all I want to ask.
Okay, Josh.
Good morning. As I understand the motion at this point, it's for the staff recommendation to approve the $1.7 million loan over 3 years to the South member units, and for the agency at this point to take on the 1.2 million additional cost, and with direction to staff to work with the pod committee to discuss whether there will be some change in that loan structure over time, and perhaps a more general policy discussion about the agency's participation in operations, maintenance, and capital for the member units going forward.
So part of this motion is formally taking this to the pod committee. Is that correct?
Oh,
I think, as I understand the proposal, that would be direction to staff to do that.
Okay.
Is there a need to have that direction as part of the motion, or can the motion just be as is, and then we, not part of the motion,
encourage
direct
them.
or
Yeah.
encourage?
Yeah,
Encourage them.
So if you
Encourage
amend the
them.
motion to just be directly as the staff recommended, and then we can give direction afterwards.
And that's fine. That's
exactly
perfectly
as
fine.
the staff recommended.
Okay, is everybody clear on the motion?
Yes.
Well, since I'm the one that'll carry out, I think that the tag on to the motion is Director Vasquez has moved to support the staff recommendation.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm also being directed to work with the pod committee to address overall financial contribution of the agency towards these capital upgrades moving forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Including the 1.7.
Including the 1.7.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're all clear on this, and we do have a motion and a second. So do we have any public comment? Any further board comment? Okay, since this is an action item, we have another comment.
Often when we're contributing investments in the community, we ask that a representative of the grantee or the loaning entity is here.
Okay.
So we have Paul Baggett, who's one of the South members, and I just wanted to recognize that he's here. If you had any questions for him, he is here, but they are being represented in the audience.
Good.
Thank you for
Any
attending.
questions?
All right.
I think we're good.
Should we
Thanks for
recommend
coming.
a roll call vote?
I'm in favor of roll call votes, so that would be fine.
All right, very good. We'll do that at random. Let's start with Director Messick.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Blazer.
Yes.
Director Vasquez.
Yes.
Director Fuhrer.
Yes.
Director Bishop.
Yes.
Everybody. Director Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. 6-0.
Okay, I believe we're moving on to the manager's report. Thanks, Ryan.
Very healthy discussion. Thank you. And sorry for interjecting and clarifying, but I just wanted to get it right. But that's a healthy discussion, and that's how this is supposed to work. So thanks for that. Generally, we're in good shape. Storage in New Bullard's Bar is at 660,000 acre feet, 122% of normal. We've only had 72% of average inflow year to date. That's October 1st to date. So we haven't had a lot of precipitation or inflow compared to normal, but it's still early in the season. There's a summary of the September power generation revenues there in the first page. Our actual generation was 58,000 megawatt hours with a forecast of 65,000 megawatt hours. So we were slightly under our forecast. I haven't dug in to see why that was, but we're thinking it's related to the ramp downs of the generation following irrigation season and then the overall demand for water and energy in September. And then the pricing was also less than forecast, the megawatt hour price we received from CalISO. And I do have a strong feeling that that's just based on a lack of demand in September, a lack of extreme demand during heat waves. September was generally mild. And if we use past years as our forecasting tool, you look at last year and the year prior, there were significant heat waves in September. So compared to the last couple years, our September was mild. So that's very likely the cause of the less than forecast megawatt hour price. So generally, the maintenance crew is working on buttoning up the recreation season. They've gathered up all the woody debris and piled it on the edges of the reservoir, and they're waiting for the wet season to burn those piles. We went through the Narrows 2 outage last month, and we're in the Colgate Unit 1 outage now, which is a significant amount of maintenance work and is detailed in the report. Colgate 1 is the only one that's out. It'll be out for this month, out on maintenance. There's one piece of information I didn't address in my tunnel outage presentation earlier, and that is the fact that we have communicated our postponement of the tunnel outage from 24 to 25 to FERC. I had a direct discussion with FERC San Francisco last week, and they're aware of the reasoning. They understand the concern we would have in not having the material on hand and taking the tunnel out, and they don't have concerns of the 1-year delay. It's still an El Nino year, and based on the ocean temperatures, it looks like El Nino will continue at least until middle of next summer. As I've reported in the past, and as is shown on page 5 of the manager's report, El Nino generally people think might be wet because some El Ninos are significantly wet, but there's an equal chance of wet or dry, and it's generally wetter in the southern part of the Southwest and Southern California. It all depends on where that line of precipitation is, and we're kind of right in the middle between the Northwest and the Southwest. Okay, there's a lot going on in communications and community development, and as you know, that's not my wheelhouse, so I read it to you. So here we go. Since our last report, the Appeal Democrat included stories promoting the Yuba County Be Prepared Fair on the 19th, which mentioned our involvement, as well as a story about the latest round of reusable water bottle deliveries and water conservation flyers to Yuba County schools, which was partially funded by a grant from Yuba Water. I was interviewed by Hydro Leaders magazine and will be featured in the upcoming issue. I think it came out today. I haven't looked at it yet. The magazine highlights the people and agencies behind our nation's hydropower. John James was interviewed by a writer for Stanford University about forecast-informed reservoir operations. That story should be published in December. In community relations, on Thursday the 19th, Alex represented us on a panel that Core Charter Academy put on about the experience of getting an FAA commercial drone pilot's license. And looking ahead, the Yuba Watershed Protection and Fire Safe Council will hold a screening of California's watershed healing at their meeting on November 8th at the Alcoff Center. And Joanna Lassard, our watershed manager, will speak on a panel following the screening. And this weekend, we will be screening the Tricky Yuba at the Swan Festival as part of our sponsorship. On November 14th, we'll hold a joint media event with our partners on the Hallwood Side Channel and Floodplain Restoration Project to celebrate the completion of that project. On Saturday, the 18th, Yuba Water will be recognized as the Bear Yuba Land Trust Business Supporter of the Year at their Conservation Awards and Gratitude Breakfast in Grass Valley. We're also sponsoring the Hands of Hope Turkey Trot on November 18th. Finally, a shout out for the communications team, which was recently awarded 2 Influence Awards by the Public Relations Society of America, California Capital Chapter, for our media relations efforts around the DeGear Nature Like Fishway announcement in May and our Faces of Yuba Water social media campaign. In community impact and engagement, Jackie Silman and Amy Knorr of the Yuba County Office of Education delivered hundreds of reusable water bottles and water conservation flyers to Yuba County schools last week to promote water bottle filling stations that have been installed at 13 schools across Yuba County. And as you know, the program was made possible through an $86,000 grant from Yuba-Sutter, which leveraged over $68,000 in grant funds that the regional waste management, with additional support from the Yuba County Department of Health and Human Services, Recology, the Rural Community Assistance Cooperation, and the Yuba River Endowment. The deliveries also landed on the front page of the Appeal Democrat last Thursday. Our upcoming meetings are a regular board meeting and a pod meeting on November 21st.
Thank you. Inspiring. Okay, we're going to do some directors' reports. Give the directors a chance to make any announcements or suggestions for future agendas. So, Director Vasquez.
Well, this Saturday, November 11th, is the 20th annual Yuba-Sutter Veterans Day Parade, which, for those who don't know, it's one of the largest Veteran Day parades in the state. And if you'd like to join us, you can call Cindy Burrell at 530-701-7349. That's it.
Director Fuhrer.
To follow up on that, there's some fundraisers for the veterans. There's a GI breakfast at the Elks Lodge at 8 a.m. and then there's a barbecue lunch after the parade at River's Edge Pub. There's also a parade in Olivehurst. I believe it's December 9th at 5 p.m. Being sponsored by the Fire Department Auxiliary. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Director Messick.
I'm going to pass. I don't have anything.
Dr. Matthews.
I'd like to apologize to the board. I was supposed to go to a conference last Wednesday in Sacramento that featured the director of Water Resource Control Board and major policies. It was a good harvest day and I couldn't pass on it. But also we're still working on Ellis Lake. I met with some person that last week that's going to help put some bids in on spraying the islands that are left on of weeds in the Ellis Lake and get it going in that direction.
Where are you on rice harvest?
Hopefully 3 more days.
Good. Looks like the weather will help you out.
Yes.
Director Bishop. Do we have anything from Terry or anybody else? Okay, my only comment was going to be again about the Veterans Parade. It's every year, as you should probably know, it's on the 11th day at 11 o'clock on the 11th month. It's always my favorite parade. Looks like we will have probably a large turnout. It's on a Saturday and good weather, and it's an all-American apple pie parade. Okay. Let's see, we are having an administration, budget, and personnel committee meeting at 10:30 over on F Street. And I think if there's no other action, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very
Is there
much.
a pod meeting at 5?
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.